Welcome to the world beyond, where we're always talking about things involving healing, metaphysics, paranormal, and the supernatural. We're right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and I'm Joe Weigant, your host. Today we have a special guest with us. Kay Hummel from Evansville, Indiana, is a homeopathic doctor and a reflexologist. Her credits include she is a doctor of natural medicine in 2002. She studied reflexology at IUPUI in 2010 and also gained a level 1 certification of Chi reflexology in 2011. Kay, we're so excited to have you with us today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
Outstanding. We're happy to have you on the show. So, what encouraged you to begin to take up the study of reflexology and add that to your already impressive practice?
Oh, well, that happened just out of the blue. One day I knew I needed to make a change. My husband, who I had worked with as a chiropractor, had deceased, and so I was no longer able to do a lot of my work under my own licensure here in the state. You're not allowed to touch people and do other things. So one day I heard this little word in my head that said reflexology, and I went, and it's a perfect blend for evolving my services to help the body move into a better wellness state, to move out of the disease process, so to speak. So it just was a perfect fit. Really glad I wouldn't turn back the time on that at all. It's a great modality.
Now, how do you blend reflexology with your naturopathic practice or your homeopathic practice?
Yeah, well, as many people realize, that it's the inside where all the action happens that creates our health. We don't have to think about it, and it's when suddenly it's telling us something's wrong and we have to think about it, that's when things are starting to percolate in a direction that's leading toward things of a greater magnitude. Example, some people start with some indigestion. Well, they're on their way possibly to an ulcer, possibly to other complications from not digesting their foods. So it all is varies from person to person, but as we all know, healing, that function inside, healing has to happen from the inside out. It doesn't happen from the outside in.
Precisely.
So if there's tension in the body, that reduces the body's ability to function. So there's many things that can block that function. Reflexology is just one piece of the puzzle that serves to enable the body to relax, to calm down, and to resort and regroup, rebalance so that function can return. One of the hallmarks of reflexology is its ability to work with pain, with sleep, with constipations and indigestion. So it's because, and that's simply because it does work through the nervous system. It works through the reflective target of the central nervous system, which is command central.
Outstanding. How old is the concept of reflexology? I've seen plenty of charts, and some of them reflect, back several hundred years. How old is it, and how did it actually begin becoming a practice?
Well, there's books that have it linked all the way back to the tombs in Egypt. There was a physician's tomb opened, apparently, and it showed the doctor of birth, the doctor of working on the feet, along with dentistry. So reflexology's roots go back in that direction. So it has its own history of involvement. And then for the recent years, it was seen by one ear, nose, and throat surgeon, Dr. Fitzgerald, and he was studying in Europe at the time, and he brought it to America, in hopes of helping it allow him to provide minor surgeries in his office for ear, nose, and throat procedures.
Welcome back to the World Beyond. You're right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. I am your host, Joe Weigant, and today our special guest is Kay Hummel, and today we are talking about reflexology and its effect on the human body. Kay, I've seen a number of charts with pictures of the hands and the feet and the ears, and most of these charts will depict sections of the hands or feet that will relate to organs of the body. Now, does this actually relate to the actual organ itself, or do they reflect an energy system the way traditional Chinese medicine and the meridian systems work?
That's a pretty broad question. What we're working on in traditional reflexology would be the nervous system reflective, meaning the pressure that we put on a particular area of the foot will travel up and recirculate through the brain and help release the tension in a particular area. I know I've worked on people and they can feel it in their shoulder, they can feel it in their liver, and that's where I'm working on the foot. The traditional Chinese medicine or acupuncture, now acupuncture traditionally works with a different medium, so different medium, different results. I know if an acupuncturist put needles on some of the specific points on the bottoms of the feet, that the person would come off the table. So I think they're called the Mashu points. So from that perspective, I have a broader field and ability to impact on some of the deeper aspects of not only the meridian, but the nervous system in conjunction as well. So, and then as far as the maps on the feet, they're designed, we have many maps throughout the world. We have the tongue map, we have the iridologist who sees the eyes, we have several. So the feet are just among those. And so when I work on the feet, if I feel an area of tension, there'll be a little knot, and you work the knot, and the tension will be released, not only the foot, but also in the body of the person I'm working on. So it's an entire system. And work the whole body through the feet.
Outstanding. Here's another question. If you're working with somebody who has, let's say, a stomach problem or a low back problem or something like that, do you normally just concentrate on those areas of the feet, or do you run through an entire A to Z type of lineup of things you're going to hit?
Well, from the way I work, I first work to relax the whole body, and then I work the whole system, and then I go back in and target the areas of concern. Pardon me. And that's how my practice works. Every reflexologist does different things within their practice because there's different capabilities for a body. Like a post-surgical person is going to have something different than, say, somebody doing chemo or somebody who has just had, say, an auto wreck. So it just depends on what is going on with the individual person and the circumstances at that time.
So how is going to a reflexologist, the actual diagnosis and the prescription of treatment, how is that different from going from a reflexologist to, say, a standard white coat family physician? How do you treat someone, or how do you diagnose an issue when someone comes in and they say, I have this particular symptom?
Okay, so when we're talking to that kind of comparison, it's kind of like apples to oranges, because my background is certified as a holistic health practitioner, so I'm not looking to give it a name. I typically tell my people it's time to lose label. We want the body to come together and the body will know what to do. So that I found over and over, if I allow the body to provide the question, then I can go in and I can find an answer. The physicians, I've worked for some people who like pre-surge circumstances and also post-surgically so that they drain and they feel better. Again, it's more about being in a blend of the world so that we know our scope of practice, and little by little my scope of practice is seeing where it can branch into and complement rather than be seen as something you either do this or you do that. It's great the way the world's shaping up. There's a lot more respect today for practitioners who utilize and encourage people to eat right, and use the homeopathics as well as the botanicals and supplements targeted. So it's evolving, which is wonderful. It's really great that it is.
I also agree. I think I read somewhere that in 2014, Americans spent upwards of about $40 million of their own money out of pocket for what we would call alternative health applications, as opposed to going to pharmaceuticals or surgery. And I think that's encouraging whenever Americans are willing to, search out more natural and more readily acceptable by the body types of treatments that don't involve surgical procedures or heavy pharmaceuticals. So I feel the same way you do, that it's starting to pick up, and it's encouraging that it is. I love the way that you said lose the labels. I think that's a very, very good phrase there about losing the label of the identity of the disease or the illness or the condition.
Right. I know I learned a long time ago, if you focus on what you focus on, eventually it's going to happen. I actually knew a young gal who worked in a lab, and she just knew she had lupus and never showed up, and then I think in about 18 months, she ended up with lupus. So she was like waiting for it to happen so she could get, like, you could be doing so many things. Why walk into it if you can do something else? And people are not wanting to walk into those situations where their life is less than what they want it to be. And knowing that there's alternatives that help support quality of life and keep the body moving and grooving, basically, is comforting, at least as for myself. I know I had to take my own step out of the traditional allopathic world after being in it for about 20 years. And then once I realized the potential of everything and what it was all about, then it didn't take long for me to realize that this was a better way for me to participate in my life, and I wanted to share it with other people. So it works.
Perfect. How often would you say that when a client comes to you with a particular symptom, that oftentimes your examination or your practice of the reflexology, you say you can tell whenever certain systems are compromised, how often can you tell that the source of the issue does not match the location of the symptoms?
Source of the issue. Well, if people will present with a host of concerns, and in line with the law of cure from herring, we have to heal present to past. So somewhere in the past is the one place where everything began. It has the trigger. So it's a matter of, as the homeopaths would say, peeling back the onion And that is a process, but everybody gets there. And then when they do, and then they can walk out of that forest a different direction and in a lot better health. So there's a lot to the work. My background is in homotoxicology, so I follow those principles that are outlined there. And people graduate, and they like it.
How about that? There's nothing like
Yeah,
being able to
I
conquer
like that
something
they
that would
can
normally be
graduate.
termed as chronic, huh?
Pardon me?
I said there's nothing like being able to conquer something that would normally be termed as chronic.
Right, and so when someone has arrived to a place where it's chronic, we have to see how much of the oomph of the body can pull the body into a better direction, and what will still maybe need it to be supplemented along the way. Case in point, a lot of people are on medications for their thyroid. Can we walk back, pull them out of maladaptive stress, and then go in and bring that thyroid back up to function? Now that will depend on a lot of factors relative to how long have they been on the medicine, what are their habits like, and really their willingness to cooperate and see if they can indeed help it begin to do some of its own work. So that takes a person willing to explore what is causing the body to fall into that kind of pattern, so that concern has come up. So everybody's different, and they all get approached that way in my practice. Everything is custom in my practice, so it's an effort that I enjoy taking on. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I do the similar approach with my Reiki practice, where everyone is approached from where they are and what their issue is, and then we try to find out the cause of that issue and go at it from that direction. So that's perfect. Right, we've got just another minute or so before we have to take another break. How are you, and we might have to do this when we come back, are you able to tell some of the underlying causes for some of these illnesses whenever you're starting to do some of your initial diagnosis?
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that after your break.
Okay.
All right, that sounds good.
Fantastic. We've got about another minute or so to go before we get to our break here. It has been a pleasure having you with us on the show today. Folks, you're listening to The World Beyond. I am your host, Joe Weigant, and you are listening on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Welcome back. You're listening to The World Beyond here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. I am your host, Joe Weigant. Today, our special guest is Kay Hummel, a homeopathic doctor and reflexologist, and today we're talking about the practice of reflexology. Kay, sometimes some of our physical ailments and some of our physical symptoms can trace their roots back to some unresolved emotional issue. Are you able to verify that in your practice and pick up on that through your work? And how do you address that through the way that you approach reflexology?
Well, there's several ways that I can approach that topic. A lot of times people want to go sort through all kinds of circumstances and dig into their past about everything. And my feelings on the whole topic is, when you need to know, it'll arrive in your present moment, and you'll know what you need to do to shift. Because as you know, you can't keep doing the same old thing and expect different results. That's, in other words, if you keep doing what you're doing this way, if you're doing what you're doing and from another direction, let's see how to explain that one. If you take in over the counter and you don't make any lifestyle changes, and you just want that pill to take care of you, okay, and then you come to my practice and you want things to change so that you don't have to keep getting more over the counter or go to the doctor or do this, well, then you got to look at all the factors behind everything that's creating the problem. How are you managing the stress that's coming in your life? Is it making you bitter? Is it making you angry? How do you function in the world with the people around you? So those kinds of things just kind of evolve, and we address them as they come up. But the real value in releasing tension is if the tension's coming up in the same place all the time. As a lot of people want their shoulders, their shoulders are tired, and they think that's where they carry most of their stress. If I sit there and listen to them, and then I ask them if they were driving down the road and they were in a hurry and they heard a siren behind them and they see that it's an officer getting ready to stop them, and you ask them where they feel it, most of the times they're not going to be pointing to their shoulders. They're going to be pointing to a lot of people point to their chest. Some people go, oh, I feel it right here in my back. So everybody has a way of perceiving that initial hit, and they aren't even aware that that's typically connected to a lot of what their health concerns are that are presenting at any given time. So you begin to start connecting the dots from there, and you start working with different levels, and that's one of the beautiful aspects of homeopathy is it's about the law of similars, and like cures like. So the remedies themselves, to the match is more on target, the more it matches the mental emotional status of someone, along with anything that's called a peculiar. So homeopathy has them naturally built in, and it just starts helping to increase individuals' awareness. A relaxed body is also able to increase its ability to have an awareness of choices, decisions, and feelings connected with. The brain's not designed to solve emotional problems. You solve problems and you create with it, but the emotions aren't what the brain's designed to run on. So the emotions have to be utilized for what they're supposed to be utilized for. Then I also love the Bach flowers. Almost all my clients get the Bach flowers, especially in the beginning. So they learn the value of you get to be present in a situation without the whole situation turning you upside down or pulling the rug out from under your feet. So it's a whole different kind of experience. The body, the brain filters. It doesn't know what time it is. It doesn't know that you're not the 2-year-old with the hand, coming up behind you and throwing you off the chair. So it has filters to guard you, and so we have to remember in present time we make better decisions. So if you understand when those emotions come up and you say dose the Bach flowers because you can feel something coming and you don't know what it is, it will calm you down, let you breathe, and it enables you to not go into that excessive tension place. So then that's a good time to get a session with a reflexologist, such as myself, or even a Reiki session, something to make sure that the body stays balanced and that it's going to learn a new way to respond. Most of the things that we are experiencing today, they're learned, and you can unlearn them. Just like our eating lifestyle. Some people have a palate that's educated really toward fast food. Well, if they want their body to get better, the body recognizes real food over fast food. I mean, real foods, when you're eating real food is the ingredients. It's not stuff you don't know what came out of the lab and was put in it. So I encourage people when we start working with re-educating the palate. So I start with just some of the basics and make sure that's really simple. Because it's not just about any one thing. It's going to fix it. When you're talking a holistic approach, whether you're using reflexology to support the work and relaxing the tension, or if you're simply using the homeopathy and the rest of the prescriptions together, it becomes choices and decisions about movement and about food choices, water, and friends, who's nourishing you and who's not nourishing you. So relationships. And so when things like that are coming up, it's like, they need to talk to a spiritual advisor, or they need to talk to their psychologist, psychiatrist. Some people come to me for depression. So that's when it's out of my scope of practice, but given the tools that they have for me when they go to the other practitioner, then that scope of practice gets enhanced because the light bulb can go on easier and more readily because the normal obstacles or blocks and walls are a little more down, and the individuals usually are a little more receptive to hearing and thinking of new possibilities that they can allow to come in their life. So it's in my practice, it's really a very holistic way of looking at any individual as they're wanting to move on or move forward in life. And then being in the location that I am, it makes it kind of easy because I always tell people I'm privileged to have a couple downstairs who run a vegan restaurant. And so I'm like, I don't care what you like to eat. Everybody can eat a good vegan meal once in a while, and you can explore new tastes down there. So it's a win-win all the way around in my location. And then we also have yoga classes available. And if they're not into yoga, then I want them to get into walking, or I want them to get into something to get moving, because we got to take the garbage out. If you don't take the garbage out, you're just going to have a stagnant house. That stagnant energy don't do you no good.
Precisely. I would love to hear you expand on the comment you made about the brain is not built to handle emotions or to process them. The emotions have to be processed in another manner. Could you expand on that?
Right. Many years ago, I went to a lecture by a psychiatrist, and it was really humorous. He said, if you have parents, at the time I was a teacher, and he said, if your parents, are starting to get really emotional, or you find that you're getting really emotional in a situation, he said, just start doing the math. He said, because you've got to get out of that creative feeling kind of place in order to solve a situation. You want to solve a situation logically and as clearly from an unbiased perspective. He said, and then allow everyone to have whatever emotions they are in, they have. They don't have to. You've been perhaps in a situation at work where your boss made a decision and suddenly you got half the office can't stand it, maybe two people walk out, and then the others are like, I don't see what the real problem is. So everyone is entitled to have their emotions in regards to any situation. If the emotion becomes detrimental to their health, which is typically what anger does, Nothing in excess, even over happiness. You've heard people laughing themselves into hysteria. So, I mean, nothing in excess. But our world today, we're so water cooler oriented. We want to have people on our side if we've got a perspective that's a little antagonistic about something. So those don't serve any purpose. And when the emotions aren't managed by people, that's when it begins to interfere with how your brain is functioning, because really your brain's just going to go to work and it just wants to get the job done and go home and then do other things. So the brain's not emotions. From Chinese medicine, we have systems related to different emotional components that impact them negatively. So I'm currently working to put together a workshop locally to help people understand how they can target these and perhaps even use something like emotional freedom technique to help not tell your body not to have them, but to allow your body a space to know, okay, how am I going to solve this so it quit making me feel bad? Because your boss isn't feeling bad, you're feeling bad. So there's no reason for you to feel bad. You need to sort out where you need to be in relation to that whole circumstances, so it's not pulling you either way. It's not making you, at least it's not pulling you down, and you can be sure and steady on your feet. Then you're doing a better job for yourself and for the employer and the rest of the people that are depending on you in the office. It's just, that turns it into a win-win for everybody, because we're not here to like everything that happens. It's not a Santa Claus world. We don't always get what we want, and it's not because we've been bad. It's just because it isn't what's going to happen. So, you know what I'm saying?
It sounds an awful lot like the Buddhist principle of not worrying about or regretting the past and not fretting over the future, but living in that moment for what it is.
Right, because in that moment, that's going to give you all the information you need to move in your life comfortably, because we're here to live our life. We're not here to live by somebody else's life, but other people's actions shouldn't pull us out of our life miserably. It should be status quo and happy. Chop wood, carry water.
Perfectly. Well, you are listening to The World Beyond on the X Zone Broadcast Network. I am your host, Joe Weigant, and we will come back and talk more with Kay Hummel in just a few minutes. Welcome back to The World Beyond on the X Zone Broadcast Network. I am your host, Joe Weigant. Today we're talking to Kay Hummel, a homeopathic doctor and a reflexologist, and we've been talking about reflexology and the practice of regaining health. Kay, if most of our chronic illnesses, some of the major illnesses that we are prescribing a lot of pharmaceuticals, most of those originate as an autoimmune deficiency or a disorder in the autoimmune system. How do you approach that particular aspect of illness in order to bring it back to wellness again?
Apply the same basic core principles that I do with all my clients. Healing happens at different levels. It's all about the mind-body-spirit connection as it's put out by so many practitioners. When it comes to autoimmune disorders, we've got to get the body communicating on the inside. You've got to begin repair. You've got to it depends on, what's going asunder. So a lot of times it's the gut, a lot of the liver. If I could say one thing to everyone out there, if you learn to love that liver and take really good care of your liver, you're ahead of the game. And that's one of the things that's so important when it comes to choosing pharmaceuticals and what they term as nutraceuticals or supplements. I mean, the liver has to go through and process all of this stuff. So if you're not getting adequate water, if the detox pathways, if those methylation pathways aren't open and clearing, then you're not going to get where you want to get. You're defeating your purpose. And so it becomes important to get the colon and the liver and the kidneys upregulated, along with making sure that spleen and the lungs are getting their necessary energy and attention. So it, again, in my practice, what I offer to my clients is a holistic approach. I don't say, oh, you have this, well, let me go look it up. I'm going to give you this, this, and this. I'm going to give you A, B, C, and we'll see how that works. And maybe we'll give you D if that doesn't. That's not a holistic approach. That is taking nutritional supplements and simply saying, let's play allopathic doctor with it and see how we do. And the problem with that approach with nutrition and supplements is that gradually you're taking as many supplements as if you were taking pharmaceuticals, and you keep going, oh, I need another supplement, oh, I need another supplement, oh, I got this now. So you're not really, the approach isn't fixing the body, it's just substituting one Band-Aid for a different kind of Band-Aid. In school, we likened it to rearranging the deck furniture on the Titanic. You can rearrange it, but you're still sinking the ship because nobody's addressed anything relevant to where the problem is. So that's why peeling the onion or getting the body to relax down to where you can see where your vantage point is to begin shifting the body. And that takes a lot of energy. You've got to have a healthy adrenal system, you've got to have a liver function, you've got to have a lot of players upregulated before you can do that. And another thing relevant to autoimmune, you're talking maladaptive stress, which most of America is under a maladaptive stress, and that is one of those that I target through a special program I offer to my clients. And once we stabilize the adrenal system and have them working where they're supposed to, then the rest of the digestive and everybody else goes, oh, okay, now we get to do our job. We don't have to keep letting the endocrine fall apart because of these things. Example, somebody with elevated cholesterol typically has a very maladaptive adrenal problem, and it can be fixed. We got to go in and help the liver and the colon and the kidneys, and then we can get things moving in a better direction. People feel better, people lose weight, people rebalance, they sleep better, a lot of pain and systemic inflammation goes away. So that's one of the core things we do offer to my clients. We want to get them moving that direction. Then when it comes to why the body's fighting itself, usually there is definitely a deep-seated problem relevant to self-esteem. So we work with that and can usually shift that one around.
That is so interesting. Do you notice that when you help your clients process their own chemicals and hormones and food and air and these things that are necessary for life, when they begin to start processing those things in a more healthful manner, do they also start processing their lives in a more healthful manner?
Right, they do. Everybody, I mean, it just takes on, I don't have to do all the work, it just kind of naturally happens. And people, when they look back, after they've been with me, say 3 to 6 months, and they look back and they go, wow, and they're seeing life differently. Yes, they're more receptive to life, things begin, they're more ready to take on the next level of helping their health, whether it be cooking more food and microwaving less, or really going and getting serious about exercise. So everybody approaches it different, and I don't want anything to overwhelm them anywhere along the way, because if I do, then I've defeated the purpose. I got to keep them moving in the right direction.
That is beautiful. If reflexology were to move out of the position it's in the medical field and move more mainstream to where it has a greater acceptance with the AMA, but it did so at the cost of having to be more regulated, having to be more part of the medical system, having to require people to go to medical school first before they practice. Would you encourage that move, or do you prefer that it would stay where it is and not be a part of that community?
Oh, I would prefer that it stay where it is. I think that insurance companies have got too big a handle on, and they've grown too big as it is. I don't think we need that governed through that type of regulation at all. You know, the homeopathics are regulated through the FDA, and all that I offer to my clients have passed strict regulations. But as far as going into and being something that people want to have a doctor prescribe it so their insurance will pay for it, no, I don't want to see it arrive to that point, for myself at least. I know I can go in, I've been called a spiritual advisor, so I could go locally into a hospital and work, which I found was quite humorous, but that's what the doctor wrote on the orders. So let the spiritual advisor come in and do reflexology. That was pretty good.
That is humorous. That really is funny. And I agree with you about not having some of these alternative modalities moving into the mainstream and become part of the insurance and pharmaceutical and medical system. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's America's healthcare needs a big overhaul. I'm not quite I don't have the solution for some of it, but I do really appreciate the people willing to come to my practice and invest money in my services that is out of pocket. That is, for some it's kind of a strain, but I work with everyone as best I can, and we end up pretty well in a win-win. And when I can hear a physician's feedback come back saying, well, tell that Miss Kay, I think she knows what she's doing, that feels good. That feels really good. So little by little, they're respecting what I do offer in support of wellness work and helping the client move, perhaps keeping the function, say, of a gallbladder or improving the function of a kidney for a little bit longer. So that, and that's a good thing. I know I had a gal one time I just did reflexology on, and she stayed off going to dialysis for another 7 years. So that was just reflexology, and she did some diet modification. So it does work. And but she did arrive to the point where she needed the dialysis, but by then she was okay with it all because she had enjoyed quite a good time without being on dialysis that the doctors had been ready to put her on. So it's all good. There's a lot that can be done through allowing the body to help the body. You just have to put in the time and the effort to allow it to happen. I think you know that through your work as a Reiki master. So, you know, people have to be willing to allow time and space for that to happen. Some things happen quick, some things just take a little bit longer.
I agree. You know, the alternative modalities that we practice, they're not Band-Aids and they are not pills. You can't go and just keep living your dangerous lifestyle and expect these modalities to just make everything go away. It does require a little bit of effort on their part. Kay, it has been an absolute pleasure having you with us today, and I think we've learned a lot. You're always welcome back to the World Beyond show, and I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye, Joe.
Thank you for coming. Folks, you have been listening to The World Beyond. I'm your host, Joe Weigant, and we are right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. We appreciate you being with us today, and we'll hear from you, or we'll see you again next time. Thank you.